Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Woolman. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
All right, everybody, we are back with the amazing Emily Line. I got the fist pump down. I'm ready to go as we continue this conversation on RPR and all the great things that Emily, you're involved with. When we left off, you spoke about making sure that the user is at the center of all innovation. And I think that is a very valuable distinction. I think if there's a differentiating factors upon prop tech companies is there are those that would like to maintain the user as the center of the transaction, the realtor, the practitioner that is going to bring that personal knowledge, that hyper-local information, and the connectivity with the people that are doing business within their localities. And then there are those that feel that tech is the one and all solution to address concerns and really provide disruption or growth within the industry, depending on how they see it. Why do you think that it is so important to maintain, the user at the center of all innovation?
Well, I believe in it wholeheartedly because you eliminate failure very quickly in solutions. I mean, you have human beings that are at the start of why you do anything. And you need to study what the human being needs and what the problems are. And if you're really going to be an organization, a company, a technology offering, then you need to have that problem be very clear and authentic so that you can solve for the user's problems. Because if you solve for the user's problems, you make money anyway if you are a company that your goals are driven on subscription fees or what have you. And I understand we're in a unique position because we are a realtor benefit. And we're a benefit to Institute affiliates. And so CCIMs, SAORs, ALCs, CPMs, and CREs. And with that, we're very fortunate because there's a lot, it's maybe a little easier to get people to test and to take the time, to save the time. That's, I got to give that a shout out to Dina Zimmerman. I use her quote all the time because we feel very fortunate to be able to take time up front in the way that we build software with users a part of every step of the way. And so it eliminates wonky steps, it eliminates wrong things going to market, and it creates a much smoother development cycle that benefits the long game of where we want to go. So when you start out and you build with a lot of user research up front and usability tests, you have a software that's built that is a runway for endless possibilities. And that's why I love that approach. I'm partial to it, but I feel like if others would slow down a little bit, not a lot, a little bit, and spend a little more time validating steps with practitioners or users, they'd be in a much better position.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that RPR has been so widely embraced by the commercial practitioner is because, how many years have we known each other? You, from the very beginning, when you guys started, you made sure to have focus groups and say, hey, we're looking at launching this, try it out. What do you think? What would you change? What would you add? What would you take away? So to your point about making sure that the user was at the center of how it was done, there were a lot of things that were like, this information's great, but there was too much information going on in one spot. So you kept the information and you moved it. And so I think that's one of the reasons, aside from the fact that you guys have amazing data, that it's been so popular. Any expert will tell you, or any commercial practitioner will tell you that to be an expert, you have to really know your market. And I think RPR does a fabulous job of providing all sorts of different types of information to the commercial user, right? So you don't just provide what's on the market and what's for sale and lease rates and all of that kind of stuff, but you provide tools that allow you to do a super deep dive into the demographics and the traffic count, so you really get a visual of the community. So could you tell me a little bit about how you guys came up with the whole idea of the trade reports, which I love? Talk about geeking out. I mean, literally, when I have nothing to do, I'll be like, oh, I went to this little town. Let me do a trade report on that. And my husband's like, what are you doing?
I love it.
I just love, I love the tapestry data. So if you could get a little bit into all of that, I'd love to hear how it came about.
Well, up front, we kids here understood that getting all the commercial inventory in one place was going to take some time. So we knew we needed that piece, but the piece that we could build more efficiently and more quickly was understanding the community. Selfishly, where I stand from my background of what I feel about building communities. And so we started looking at gobs of data and trying to figure out the easiest way to present really informative profiles of who the people are in particular communities or areas in a way that not just the practitioner can quickly digest it and be expert for their client, but so that the client can take a look at that and validate their placement within a community. And so a lot more complexities than just those, but it was fun to sit and talk to practitioners and to test what goes into a report. And at first I was like, okay, these reports are running very long. I mean, they have the potential to be 28 pages, maybe more depending on what a practitioner adds. So the goal when they become that big and you've got profiles of who people are, what they do, how they live, what they buy on each of those particular segments. And then you go into population stats, age stats, marital stats, and all those forecasting, you've got hefty reports. So the goal has to be there to get it in a way that's just effortless in how you read it. And so we spent a lot of time watching users go through it, practitioners, and making sure that the pieces that were essential made sense in how it was curated, like a book. And so we were really pleased with the way that those were adopted early and often. And now we're, in a place where we also have a lion's share of the inventory. So it was spend the time up front with where you have a lot of rich data and then focus on those other components that you know that you need in RPR. So we spent a lot of time focused in the area and what businesses are needed with that data, and then started to bring in the inventory as we were able to license it.
Well, and you also gave the agent a lot of control over how much or how little they include in a report, right? There's some customers that you have that might want a ton of data, and then as Beth Azer says, show up, don't throw up, and just give them a ton of information without having any client-specific information. So the fact that you can pick and choose which reports or which pages within the report you want to include is awesome, because then we can customize it.
Well, what I love about it is that it really packs a punch. And I don't think that, I'm hoping, and I see it more and more, that commercial practitioners are realizing the incredible value that is within all of the tools that are in RPR. And I remember sitting with a client of mine, and they are a food and beverage company, restaurant. They had 16 units, and now they were getting ready to do an expansion, and they wanted to franchise. And I remember sitting in his office, and he was so proud to show me this system. And he was basically breaking down how they were selecting locations. And in their location search, he was showing me all this demographic data. And I was saying, like, oh yeah, that's Tapestries. I know exactly what you're referring to. And he goes, I pay $80,000 a year for this data. I'm very, very proud of it. I said, all you had to do was hire me, and I could have given you the I could have solved this so quickly for you. But I do find the more I use it, it is such an impactful tool that continues to evolve. And that's what I love about it. It's the reason why I'm an Apple user. One of the things that I enjoy is when there's an update, there's an update. There's no nickel and diming. It's just, it continues to get better. And that's how I feel about RPR, that, I'm using a product that continues to evolve and grow. And and it is very powerful. And along those same lines, I remember sitting with another client, also F&B, and he was saying, well, I'm only interested in the location that has a certain amount of daytime workers. I want to know what the population is during the daylight hours, because I'm looking for a quick service, restaurant that is just going to be open for breakfast and lunch. And so the fact that I'm able to go in there and pull that information out and then compare it to other areas, I mean, it's just amazing when you get into evaluate. And
presented so beautifully. The presentation is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off right when you were talking about Valuate too, which, oh my God, is another. Can you tell that we're like fans? Like,
I'm loving it. I mean, just keep it coming.
You said something in the last podcast that really resonates with Fernando and I, and that is one of the frustrations that we do have and that we've been hearing for so many years in the commercial sector of real estate is the lack of transparency, right? Yep. And our PR puts it all out there. I mean, you have the information, you're sharing it, you're gathering it, you're collaborating with other people who have information that you don't have, so you're not having to do it all yourself. And I'm just so grateful for that because it makes us better practitioners. I think it provides a huge service to the real estate community in general. So I love the fact that you are so transparent as both a company and a person.
I always wonder because collaboration is so important, but it has to be done so well. There's so many things to orchestrate. So like when you announce a ComStack, ICSC, how do you work through those? How do you bring that data in so that they are showcased the right way and it's usable? Because you're in essence wanting to serve and check off so many boxes. So speak to us a little bit about those that you're collaborating with and how that information is going to be integrated and beneficial to the user.
Sure. So it's not easy. We go through several iterations of taking the user challenge or the practitioner challenge and what the need is for that data, understanding our UX and where, we've got these extensive flows. If a user does this, then this, and trying to make things super simple in that regard. So a lot of documentation that we go through. And then the other piece is how collaborative the partner is and what we have to understand their goals too. And so by looking at, typically when we do partner with an outside organization or another company, we are upfront with what our users need and expect. We ask what they're trying to achieve with their subscription fees and things. And then we negotiate based on knowing all those things so that everybody wins. And at the center of it, from our perspective, that the practitioner, the realtor, the Institute affiliate member has the ability to do what they need to in a simpler fashion. The buckets that we look at is we're trying to save members time, we're trying to save members money, and we're trying to keep things stupid simple. And stupid simple is what every human being needs. I don't care how techie somebody is, myself included. I need stupid simple because there's other things that my brain needs to do. And so we look at those elements when we do an integration. It's not always the way it's going to be forever. We study it. For ComStack, for example, we established a rhythm where we saw users going to our additional resource tab. And so we'll look at 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, and so on for 12 months to see the consistency with our users. And then we start saying, hey, do you think that this partnership should evolve from here? And that's, an example. And if we do, then we start saying, well, we could do this or this. What do you think? Said partner, and we collaborate in that regard. Another thing that we do that's important is not just a shift in how we present it in application, but also making sure that there's a collaborative effort between companies for education. So, you've seen probably recently we've done collaborative webinars with our trainers, our PR's trainers in ComStacks, Crexis, and RPR. We'll have a Brevitas one coming up as well. And so we're cycling through some of those learning needs because there's things that are important for our practitioners, our members to know that if you link over very seamlessly from RPR into Brevitas or Crexi or ComStack, here's some other stuff you should know that they do really well. And in that way, you don't have 500 tabs open. You've got an easy experience between our applications. So there's a lot of things to consider, but the biggest piece is we're following the users through to see when we need to make adaptations. and then asking questions, a lot of questions afterwards that, people are very gracious in responding. And that, we talked in the previous podcast about the Net Promoter Score, and we are very high holistically, RPR residential and commercial, but just the commercial numbers alone are higher than any tech that I've seen that's reported. If you Google any of them, said company, what's their Net Promoter Score? So we pride ourselves on this process because at the end of the day, we win if that Net Promoter Score is anything above a 60, really. And we run on the commercial side between a 70 and 75, which is excellent. And so that means our users are loyal, they're satisfied, they feel like they're getting what they need. And if there's any dips in that, we go back and assess everything.
Well, and you guys are constantly innovating, right? Which, to your point, if you stop innovating, you're going to get bored and leave. So, and I loved seeing ICSC in there as somebody who, we both do a lot of retail leasing. So seeing ICSC come on board was amazing. And I know you guys just came back from Vegas. So tell us a little bit about how the collaboration with ICSC came about, how it's been received, how the platform's been received at ICSC. And then tell us a little bit about Vegas.
Oh, what I can share about Vegas. Anywho, so we're very proud of the relationship that will continue to evolve with ICSC. The relationship really started with the crew at NAR Commercial, our colleagues there, recognizing that we had a growing number of Realtors and Institute affiliate members who were attending ICSC. And so they have over time negotiated.
Sorry, I just realized that we've been throwing out like ICSC and crew and all this, and so ICSC is the International Council for Shopping Centers. So it's a big retail association. Sorry.
They're the mecca of all things community, which is why we're really proud to be establishing stronger partnerships with that organization. And so knowing that the actual deal-making on-site events were growing with Realtors and Institute affiliate members attending, it seemed like a natural progression to say, well, could this relationship be bigger than that? And how do we make the connection between our members, our brokers who need to connect with investors, developers, shopping center owners, et cetera? And so conversations over the last several months took place between NAR, RPR, and ICSC. And ICSC's team is just absolutely remarkable. And to be totally blunt, sometimes I don't even know the difference between our teams because we've become that close in how we build and how we work together. And so I cannot say enough incredible stuff about when you find a good partner, hold on to it. Their staff is just amazing and they have the member at heart. And so, we started talking, and I don't know if it was 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, the NAR commercial committee meeting, I went back and looked through notes on some of the things, the areas that came up that were kind of a wish list with RPR that wish we had better connections here or here. And so ICSC was a topic, but specifically the ICSC members. And so we were really pleased to try to strengthen the deal making that can take place in application, not just at events. And so these developers and owners will be connected to our Realtors and Institute affiliate members to do deals, to see their listings, to see what's available, and to have conversations ongoing, not just at these events. And so we're just scratching the surface with the relationship. The Marketplaces IQ is what ICSC refers to the RPR technology as, because it falls in line with all of their objectives. So that goes back to that, make sure that we're all communicating and doing things that our members understand. And we launched Marketplaces IQ April 4th. So we're just a little over 30 days out, and the adoption's been incredible. And when I was at ICSC this week, I was standing in the ICSC booth at the center of the ginormous show, and our members and their members and all of our people together were coming up and chatting. I mean, I had conversations with practitioners from Houston who are members and ICSC members. So it's just this natural fit. Wow, we don't have to think of things as separate entities. There's a way that everybody can work together. And to me, that's the epitome of community. And if you can solve for it with some technology too, just icing on the cake.
Yeah, I loved seeing that because, to your point, there are a lot of us that are in commercial that are members of other organizations. I am a member of ICSC as well. And so I remember seeing that collaboration and going, oh my God, this is amazing. It's such a natural fit. And for members who aren't Realtor members but are ICSC members or vice versa, I think it's just going to strengthen both of those communities. I know Dina's also a member of both, so there are a lot of them that cross over, and it was just such a natural, perfect fit. So thank you again for innovating and for being in all of those meetings where you connected the dots and said, hey, ICSC is our next.
Well, I wanted to say thank you for clarifying ICSC, where the goal of this podcast is to demystify commercial real estate. And here we are throwing out jargon without explaining it. So I appreciate that. But one thing I heard you say, which I think is very good, and it is this idea of keep it simple, stupid, because I love baseball. And all sports now have just embraced statistical analysis and, getting a deeper understanding. But at the end of the day, a ball player has to go up there and they have to see the ball and hit the ball. There is an expansion of growth of data, and you're bringing in all that data, but then you have to find a way to edit. Editing is where the power really lies, because now you simplify it to its most significant principle, and now you allow the practitioner to really be able to focus on that thing that is really going to move the needle. In the commercial side of RPR, what is the tool that is used most by commercial practitioners?
Great question.
Great question. So we reworked some of our maps to be more front and center, if you will, in RPR. And we did so with our website first. We are under the hood right now with several iterations of changes to our mobile app. And just for clarification purposes, something I'm also stoked about is that we have a native mobile app, and there's a reason for that, meaning you have to go to the App Store to get it, as opposed to a responsive, looks exactly like website. The reason we went that route was because we were studying users on the go needs as opposed to what they do from their desk. So that's one way that you can tear apart too much. So it's not an overcomplication of information, because there's definitely separate things that a human being does when they're working from the road as opposed to what they're doing when they're sitting at the desk. And when, to go back to your original question, which is what are they using most? We started recognizing and testing for both mobile and for website that our maps weren't as present as they should be. And so we put those in the forefront of website. And so thanks to the NAR commercial committee meetings, again, going back to the notes, we want a dashboard. We want something that, whether I want to look at what's new inventory wise every day, every week, once a month, I want to be able to set it and forget it and see those things. I also want to make sure that I'm reminded that you have existing business data in there. So I want to use that map to, and we've seen a lot of growth with our business points of interest, because it gives a baseline for how a business does in an area. So you can populate that. I want to see the traffic counts, which you can populate that. So our maps, with several features within those maps, have grown incredibly popular. So I'd say that's definitely seeing growth on our maps is right there in line with searching for a property, because we also made the search bar a lot more present on every page too. So you've got the idea of searching, and I think it's important for your listeners, your viewers, to know that not just the on-market inventory that's searchable, it's also off-market. So you can see historical data on properties, understand the owner information, understand, if the mortgage deed, legal description, all of that stuff. And so the top two things I think are people touching that search bar and people grabbing that map. And it's kind of like this, but we've created our maps so that they're interactive. So I think that map view is going to be used a lot more for search too.
That's phenomenal. I love the representation of data in a format other than just a list, right? And so whether it's an infographic or a map, and it's that representation that is very impactful, especially when you're on the go, right? Sometimes you're in a new area, you want to know a few facts about it right away, and the ability to pick up a mobile app and be able to have some instant information is incredibly impactful, especially, with the way things are nowadays, that everything is so easily accessible.
Well, and to your point, I think you mentioned in the last podcast, is just keeping it simple so that it's easy to see. I can't remember what Dina's quote was, but I remember I'm going to go back and write it out, because it was a good one about how, you need to be able to look at it, see it right away. Well, what better visual than a map versus a list? So I think that makes sense to me, that the map would be one of the most used. And to your point, I mean, you've got a lot of data points on there. You've come a long way, baby, since the original map. 8 to 10 years ago when we started demoing them. So I love that. I
like the song reference, because I've got the a record in my background here, Rolling Stones, and I used to, my record player's right here.
Awesome.
I love vinyl, but I used to think to myself, can't get no satisfaction, when I was trying to figure out how we were going to get inventory. But now we're different.
Yeah.
I love it. We've made a lot of references to someone that I think we all have a crush on, which is Dina Zimmerman. She is, I always tell her she's my spirit animal. I love her. And I think you might be ready to announce now. So when are you and Dina going to have your own reality show? Is what I want to Is it in the works? Can we put it together? Do you need a producer?
So for those of you who don't know Dina Zimmerman, which there are probably not a lot of people that are listening who don't, but she is the queen of retail in Chicago with SVN, and she is just an amazing human being and a lot of fun. And you guys have some hashtag blonde something or other going.
Blonde ambition.
There you go. Hashtag blonde ambition.
I love it. I love it.
So anyways.
Merch is going to come out soon.
There you go.
But I did want to ask you this question, because I'm a father of 2 daughters. I love this industry. And I always find a lot of inspiration in the amount of powerful women that have really joined the commercial sector and that are really blazing a trail in the commercial sector. When you have people like companies like Otso, and then, Dina, yourself, I mean, of course, I partner with an amazing human being right here as well. And so I wonder if you would speak, maybe both of you could speak a little bit about how we're seeing in the ecosystem that growth of women within the commercial sector and that pathway of growth, because I think it's exponential.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Over 16 years ago, when I got in the business, I felt like a minority, and I started out in the commercial real estate space. I now work on the research for residential, but my history, my background's definitely economic development, research, commercial real estate. And there were moments when I started, and I was much younger then, that I was like, what am I doing? Am I going to be taken seriously in this space? And it's not to disrespect. There's a lot of really great male mentors that were in the space when I got into it. But it's a little daunting when it didn't feel like there was, a lot of women to talk to and understand things with. And it's getting different today. And Jennifer can speak to it from the brokering side of things. But from the tech perspective, at RPR, we have a lot of women in our not just in the outward facing roles, industry relations, but also our head of product and development is a female. Our scrum master, who, the term for every day there's a meeting, and are we keeping things moving as they should on RPR, and also a female, and several really strong males too. So I want to be I feel very strongly about the good, strong human beings in this space, and I'm speaking to our tech side. I think that over time, with really awesome mentoring, colleges and universities have gotten a lot more involved in the commercial real estate space, or real estate in general. Samsal to be one. We've seen an evolution. I mean, between the RLM meetings, the Realtors legislative meetings in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago, and ICSC this week, I was really, my heart was warmed to see more women involved in the commercial real estate space. And I think that isn't just female mentoring, it's also males like you, Fernando, that are recognizing, we need to remind all people that there's an opportunity in this space. And being a girl dad, you're ready to rock and roll at this.
I'm ready to go, baby. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of it is generational. I think a lot of it was trailblazed, women who have been in the field for a long time, making sure that conversation is there and mentoring other women and bringing other women into the field. But I think generationally too, wanting diversity across the board and not focusing so much on any sex or race or anything, but just realizing that it's a huge industry. There's room in there for everybody, and that it's going to be a much better, much stronger, much more innovative industry the more people we have in the room that are different, right? The more variety, the more different flavors, et cetera. So, and we're lucky. And I do think, you know, to your point about Fernando and people like my son, I think, again, generationally, men are also really stepping up to the plate more, and they're not afraid of being girl dads. I mean, my son, you know, sometimes comes in and is like, Mom, do you have any nail polish remover? I can't go to the office with nail polish and bows in my hair, you know? So I think that that's generational too. And I do think that the industry is going to be so much better for the incredible amount of diversity that we're making an effort to bring into the industry.
Well, and I think that the key here is diversity of thought. Correct. And diversity of thought comes from diversity of experiences. Mm-hmm. And so if you're in an industry and your industry wants to innovate, you cannot innovate without having that diversity of thought. So it's really not a gender or a race, but it's more about, is your perspective different because of your life experience that is going to take a look at an issue that we've been addressing in the same way for years, but you're going to look at it from a different perspective. And that's where the idea comes from. That's where real innovation comes from. And so, you know, I think our job is, if we as an industry want to be our own disruptors, right, we have to allow for those, you know, not only allow, I mean, we have to aggressively embrace those diverging opinions and perspectives, because that's where, and that's really the beautiful, you know, thing that's
real estate.
Right, exactly.
It really is. That's why I think we all love this industry. I want to be respectful of your time because you've been amazing.
Incredible.
We love talking to you, and I know we could talk to you forever, and we've only like touched on a tiny little bit of what RPR does, but I want to encourage anybody who's a realtor or ICSC member who doesn't know RPR to go visit their site. They have a ton of educational videos. It's super user friendly. You can do mailing labels to find buyers, to find sellers. It's just amazing. There's a ton of information on there. It's super user friendly. So dive into it. And
there's one more plug that I'm going to say is this. You know, when you're a practitioner and you have an opportunity to go to a conference out of state, out of the country, whatever it is, take that opportunity. You know, we would have never had an opportunity to meet Emily. You know, we've met so many people around the country just because of our involvement and getting involved in all of these different conferences. You know, you really bring a lot of value back to your market and to your clients, and then you make lifelong friends, which is what I consider you, what I think we all consider you. And so that's the beautiful part of it. And in that way, your community expands and grows. And I know we've spoken a lot about community today. And so, you know, that's why it's so impactful to me, because I feel that, you know, we're part of this ecosystem and we're always going to be part of it. And now we're able to put our fingerprint on it. And that's really beautiful and exciting. So
I'm going to do a plug for RPR as my fun fact. They have 164 million properties in their database. And talking about the map, they have 12 demographic data points on their map layer. And for the Esri Tapestry, which is my favorite, they have 67 distinct market segments that get into incredible detail in terms of what the demographic of the area eats, buys, shops, how, you know, do they use an investment banker? I mean, it's insane the amount of data you get. So talk about getting to know a community. So thank you for including all that great info for people like me to geek out on and help my clients.
And I think in honor of the fact that Emily Line is our first interview, right, in this podcast, we're going to leave it at that stat. I think it's great to end with an RPR stat, and nothing better than that one. So
he didn't look up a second stat.
I did not.
I was just going to say,
you're absolutely correct.
Jennifer's hired.
That's what I wanted in a partner, somebody to call me out.
Well, I'll give you, this isn't a stat, but I will say thank you both for embracing what we do, for never ever saying no to offering feedback, and to being committed, not just for your own businesses, but for others, because it takes really strong leaders to invest the time in making sure something is right for an entire ecosystem. So we're grateful to people like you, and specifically, I'm grateful for both of you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful long weekend. I hope you get to relax and your voice doesn't sound too bad for spending 3 days at ICSC.
It's coming back.
Well, we'll see you. When do we see you next? Atlanta, perhaps? C5 or?
C5.
100% you'll see me C5, and
You might come down for IOI, right? In Miami?
I'll be there for IOI for sure. I'll be there for C5. Miami, guys, what are we going to do?
We'll do something.
We'll do something. You know that. All righty. Bye,
you.
Emily. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you so much.